What's up, guys? Eric Prey, Table Rock Fishing Intel, Focus Fishing Guide Service. This, of course, is the extended version, or the extended play version, as they used to call it back in the 80s and 90s, of the weekly video fishing report exclusively for you guys that are Table Rock Fishing Intel members. First off, thanks for being members. Thanks for sticking with us through the transition. We've got most of the bugs worked out. Still have little glitches that we're working on to try to get everything going. Again, I'm going to tell you, we've got a lot of new stuff coming, a lot more stuff coming. Hopefully you've checked out the site, you like it, you like what you see. Like I said, a lot of new stuff coming, including a true mobile app that you'll be able to look on your phone and be able to access all the information a lot easier, a lot quicker on that mobile app. But that is coming as well. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being Intel members, and really thank you for sticking with us through this transition. As far as our lake level is concerned, we are at 916.26, so 3/4 of a foot or 8 inches down. Don't see that changing much late or anytime soon, guys. We had a little bit of rain this morning, about 2/10 of an inch, so that's not even going to make a dent in it. And all the rest of the lakes, Beaver, Bull Shoals, everywhere, they're all at pool or just under pool, so I really don't expect to see a whole lot of movement in the lake level anytime soon. Water temperature, we are, depending on where you're at, anywhere from about 84 to as much as 90. Up in the rivers where you've got some color in the water in the afternoon, you will see 90, 92, sometimes even 94 degrees. After this week with these 100-degree temperatures that we're going to have starting today, would not surprise me to see 95, 96 in some of the dirtier water up the rivers. But overall, you're around that 85 to 86 degree range. The bite's been good, catching them a lot of different ways depending on where you're at. And of course, you guys know, best way to stay on top of it, use that Table Rock Fishing Intel membership and look at those daily reports. We've had a lot of reports the last couple of weeks from a lot of different guides, fishing different areas of the lake. Even Pete Leonard put a crappie report up there because he's actually catching some crappie. So check that stuff out. You guys are members, use your membership. Make sure you get all that information that's due to you so you can know before you go and have a better idea of what you're going to do, how you're going to catch fish when you get down here. But if you're coming down, you're going to fish the lower end. Again, the lower end continues to be tough. I think there's a myriad of reasons why it's so tough. I think fishing pressure is probably number one with all of the guides that are down there, all the resorts that are down there. The bulk of the people are down there, people coming over from Branson. I've noticed water clarity is not as good as it used to be, whether that's from new construction or an algae bloom or whatever that may be. But I think there's a lot of factors that's making that lower end a lot tougher to fish. My best bite down there has been fishing deep with either a drop shot rig or a spoon. On the drop shot, I'm using shad shape, cut tail, UV drop shot worm or Chomper's drop shot worm. Spoon, of course, I'm using either the white Jewel Scuba spoon if I'm jigging it. If I'm casting, I'll kind of intermix between the jigging spoon and the Dixie Jet spoon. I've been using the little 1 ounce spoon, but I know some of the guys are using the bigger flutter spoons as well, so keep that in mind. Most of the fish I'm catching down there are relating either to timber. The fish are 20 to 25, even 30 feet deep in the tops of the timber. Most of them in the creeks, not really out on the main lake. And then the other ones are on the ends of docks or on wave break docks, and they're hanging on the cables. I mean, you can see them on your graph, whether you've got forward facing or just 2D sonar. You can see the fish stacked up on those cables down there, and we're catching a lot of fish off of the cables all over the lake, but specifically down on the lower end. If you go up into Long Creek, there is a decent jig bite up there, a couple of different jig bites. There's a decent jig bite around some of the flooded cover, especially early, kind of in the little bluff pockets. As you're working your way up, you go from bluff to bluff, and you kind of hit those little bluff pockets, and if you've got some wood in there, you can flip like a Jewel Pee-wee HD spider jig or a regular spider jig or a flipping jig in there. The other bite has been on the HD Pee-wee football jig, and though it's been more out on the gravel, anywhere from about 15 to 20 feet deep, especially if you've got some brush or some rock that you can fish around. There's been a lot of fish on those brush and rock piles up there on that gravel. Really, it seems like all the fish that are on the gravel are gravitating to some sort of cover. There is a big worm bite up there as well, but it's kind of been hit and miss. I'm actually doing better with the little Pee-wee football jig, the HD football jig, than I am a big worm up Long Creek. Not exactly sure why, but I'm certainly getting more bites, and I'm getting better bites throwing that little jig versus throwing a big worm up there. But if you're a big worm kind of guy, look at you. If you're a big worm kind of guy, you can certainly catch a few Texas rigging a 10 or 12-inch worm and throw it in the brush piles up there as well. Going to mid-lake. The mid-lake opens up a lot more bites. We certainly have a deep bite. I mean, it's summertime on Table Rock, so you're going to have a deep bite all over the lake. But you certainly have a deep bite. Drop shot rig is working as well. Again, the majority of the fish are coming out of cover. I'm not really getting as many bites out on those gravel points or gravel roll-offs unless I've got some cover on it, a brush pile, a rock pile, something like that that will actually hold those fish. But my more consistent bite has been in the deeper trees, again, 20 to 35 foot deep over whatever, or in the treetops, around the cables on the boat docks. That's, with a drop shot rig, with a shad shape, cut tail, UV drop shot worm, Chomper's drop shot worm. All those baits are working. And then I'm also supplementing it with the jewel scuba spoon around the docks and around the trees. And I'm also casting that scuba spoon if I see fish busting. If I don't have the scuba spoon in my hand and I've got a Dixie Jet spoon next to me, if I see those fish busting, I'm going to choose the Dixie Jet 1 ounce flutter spoon over the scuba spoon, just because it seems to stay in that strike zone a little bit faster because of the way it's designed. It tends to flutter as it's falling, whereas the scuba spoon will fall fairly quickly. I tend to throw that Dixie Jet a little bit more. I can cover the same amount of water, so keep that in mind. If you see those fish busting out ahead of you, or if you have forward-facing sonar and you can see them on a school of shad out ahead of you, definitely throw that. Pee-wee football jig, HD has been working very good, and a regular pee-wee football jig. I pretty much changed everything over to the HD just because it fits a need. And I can fish it around cover without having to worry about it hanging up as much. But on those gravel and rock mix points, dragging that thing around from about, I'm gonna say 15 to 25, but in all honesty, guys, it's probably 20 to 25 and even a little bit deeper, kind of targeting those lone roaming fish that are out there on the gravel. And again, if you've got a piece of cover out there, whether it be a brush pile or just a handful of rocks or even just a log, if you got a log out there on a gravel point that's like 18 foot deep, that's usually a money spot to catch 2 or 3 fish on that Pee-wee HD football jig. Topwater bite, it's been hit and miss, guys. I mean, I'll have days, I always have them on the deck. Always try to start with topwater every day, but I can be honest with you, I mean, it's hit and miss. If I get 2 or 3 fish actually in the boat on topwater, I consider it a good topwater bite right now. It's not been that good. Getting a few blow-ups, but it seems like most of those topwater fish are either around deep timber, and those are the same fish we're targeting with the spoon and the drop shot and that sort of thing, or around the docks, around those deeper docks where we're drop shotting. Those fish will move up into the water column and we'll chase shad and we'll come up and eat that first thing in the morning, but it's not anything I would count on. I certainly would not count on that as a bite that I'm going to catch 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 fish on every morning. You get the right morning. Today it was rainy, it was cloudy. Yeah, those fish stayed up, and they will stay up if you're for quite a bit longer. But I tell you what, as soon as that sun comes over the hill, those fish suck back down on those cables, suck back down into those trees, and they get a lot harder to catch with a topwater or anything like that. Go up in the James. The James has really been good this last week. Did 1 trip up the James, and I was kind of wishing I had a bunch of trips up there just the way they were biting. Catch them on the Pee-wee HD football jig. Half ounce, whatever color you like. I was throwing touchdown. I was throwing bass whacker, even a little bit of Hail Mary. It didn't seem to matter. I'm matching it up with a VersaCraw, and for one reason or another, I don't know if the thermocline is starting to set up there a little bit better or what it is, but there really seems to be a lot more fish on those gravel and rock mix points up the James than there are down lake. Especially once you get above point 12, there really seems to be a lot more fish on those points. And they're 12 to maybe 20 feet deep, if that deep. Most of them are pretty darn shallow, and boy, if you got a brush pile or a piece of wood or some rocks up there, they will definitely be on it. Catch them on a shaky head. I mean, I've been throwing the HD football jig, but you can also catch them on a shaky head like the squirrel head up there. And if you're a Ned rig kind of guy, I bet you load the boat with a Ned rig. You probably have to weed through a lot of little ones, but you probably load the boat on a Ned rig as well. Up there, the brush pile bite with the big worm has been very good. If you've got some brush piles that are between that 10 and 20 foot range, work those over with a Texas rig 10 or 12 inch worm. work it from different angles. It's something I learned in a trip I did up there last week, is we were fishing it from an angle that I normally fish it, and we just weren't getting bit. Wakeboard boat came by, kind of blew us off the spot, and I kind of moved around the other side of it, and we started throwing back over it, basically from the other side, and all of a sudden they were biting. I don't know if it was because the waves came through or if it was just the angle, but work different angles when you're fishing a piece of cover like that. It'll certainly make a difference on the number of bites you get, and it just depends on where those fish are positioned in that brush pile. And the way we were throwing it earlier, I think we were bringing it right past them or even behind them. We switched to the other side, we were bringing it right in front of their face, and they bit it a lot better. And then further up the James, I've got a hit and miss buzzbait bite. It's not been great. You know, I wish I was up there today with the cloud cover and rain we had, because they probably would have ate it. But towards the backs of some of the creeks, where you've got some cover in the water, or even on the main lake when you get like above Bridgeport, on kind of those ends of those channel swing banks where you've got logs and debris in the water, the buzzbait bite, black on black buzzbait. I throw the Cavatron. That buzzbait bite is starting to take off. I figure by the end of this week, with this warmer weather and the thermocline probably going to set up and the shed moving up shallow, that buzzbait bite will not only be just a first thing in the morning deal, it'll be one of those things where you'll be able to throw it all day as long as you're putting it tight to the cover and catch buzzbait fish all day long. White River, I feel like I should buy a house in the White River, because most of my trips this past week have been up the White River. I've done one at the dam, one at the mid lake, one in the James. The other 4 days I was up the White River. And the bite up the White River is really good. Again, drop shot bite. Deep bite is king right now. Drop shot with a shad shaped cut tail UV drop shot worm, Chomper's drop shot worm, same deal. Deep trees, 20 to 25, 35 foot deep, ends of big docks around the cables. You're definitely going to start, that's where I'm catching the majority of my fish. I've had a few better fish mixed in. And I've been throwing the Jewel Scuba Spoon up in there as well. It's kind of a deal that a lot of the guides do. You know, we'll fish a drop shot a little bit, or have our people fishing a drop shot a little bit. And the fish will kind of go, I don't want to say they go dead, but the activity level drops a bunch. You can drop a Jewel Scuba Spoon down there and get it close to them and just start ripping it. And it tends to get those fish excited. And they may not eat that scuba spoon, but they will eat a drop shot rig. So kind of keep that in mind as well. If if you caught a few and it just seems like they're not moving, or they're just kind of creeping up on it and going right back down, try dropping a spoon down there and ripping that thing a few times to get them to kind of chase and bite it. Have been catching a few casting the spoon, both the scuba spoon and the Dixie Jet little 1-inch flutter spoon and the Jewel LS spin, scope spin, around schools of shad and around busting fish. I've got a few flats up the White River that these fish will, I mean, the end of the flat is 300 yards off the bank, but it drops into 35 foot of water at the end of the flat, and the shad will get out there and the fish will push them to the surface. And if you're up there drop shot and then say 25, you're not gonna reach them with anything other than a spoon, something that weighs an ounce to get it out there, but we've certainly been catching fish doing that. Pee-wee football jig HD, spider jig HD, shaky head, squirrel head, all that stuff's working. Up the river a little ways. I don't think you have to go quite to Eagle Rock, but I would say Owl Creek and above on those main lake gravel and rock mix points, especially if they've got brush or rock on them. Catching a few fish doing that. Dragging that thing around in anywhere from about 15, we'll say 12 out to about 25 seems to be the magic depth. You got to weed through a lot of shorts, but there are some better quality fish in those brush piles, so keep that in mind. And then the big worm bite, the buzzbait bite up the Kings are both starting to take off. That big worm, 10, 12-inch worm in those brush piles up the Kings. That's been a really good bite. Look for those brush piles to be 12 to 15 foot deep. And then the buzzbait bite early and late around the flooded cover, especially on the ends of those channel swings, those laydowns and stuff. There's a lot of fish that have been moving up in there, feeding on shad, feeding on bluegill, even feeding on crappie. So throwing a buzzbait up there, black on black Cavatron's been the way to go for me. Guys, it is the end of June. Silly holiday coming next week. Boat traffic is absolutely freaking ridiculous every weekend, so we are full on summer. So time to start our annual countdown. So we are, what, 2 months away, 2.5 months away before we get the lake back, before the last silly holiday of the year. But the fishing's been good. I mean, we're catching a lot of fish. If I can stay away from the dam area, I'm catching a lot more fish, but the fishing's been good. Everything down or up lake from the dam area. And the best way to know what's going on, the best way for you guys to consistently catch fish is use your Table Rock Fishing Intel membership and pay attention to what the different guides are saying, where they're fishing, how they're catching them. You know, Nico up the Kings River has been just flat whacking them in less than a foot of water. So, I mean, if I was going to go fish for fun and I knew the boat traffic was going to be ridiculous, I know that up the Kings River, where it's that small and that shallow, you're not going to have a bunch of jet skis or wakeboard boats. So I would beeline up the Kings River and start fishing it that way. But that's what this information is for, is to help you guys catch more fish and maybe explore some new areas that you haven't really fished before. But if you're coming down, want to hire a guide, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743. Hit my website, focusfishing.com, and you can book online or just shoot me an email. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Again, guys, thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel members. Thanks for going through this transition with us. We got a lot of cool stuff yet to come, but thanks for that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the water.